When Roland lifted the 200-pound log, it marked the start of building the toughest shelter ever seen on Alone in the Wilderness. His extraordinary strength had already left a profound impression on everyone.
Last big log in place.
Roland's fortress-like shelter was a standout, boosting the 7th season's ratings. Despite not gathering much food, yet the stone house construction remains on track, aligning with the grand scale of this structure. Roland picked logs around 20 centimeters thick, each weighing over 90 kilograms from Black Cloud Mountain. I thought Roland's stone house had already set a new record for shelters in the show's history. After finishing the series, I was amazed to see Roland not just chopping wood, but also expanding his shelter. It seems Roland's value continues to rise. Yet every time he moves one of those massive logs, it takes all his strength. Among these contestants, perhaps only the wilderness machine Roland has the stamina for this. It's estimated that constructing the entire shelter requires 90-kilogram logs. Gather 10 logs, unlike other survival challenges. While others aim for the prize, Roland prioritizes building a shelter suited for enduring life in the Arctic Circle. He prioritizes building a shelter that meets the practical needs for stable living. The project is physically demanding, so he'll resume the remaining work the next day. Fireweed's carbohydrates sustained him despite insufficient food over 14 days. His sturdy build and the few carbs from fireweed kept his construction progress steady. The walls are now at the right height, and the next step is adding the roof. What other participants consider as heavy logs for support beams, Roland repurposes logs usually meant for roofing, showcasing his high standards for shelter strength. However, such intense labor roughly burns 500 calories per hour. That's like the calories in 2 medium apples, showing its impressive impact, which Roland fully understands. As winter sets in, the need for a secure and cozy shelter becomes vital. Even if food isn't gathered immediately, constructing the strongest shelter in the Arctic is essential. As the final ridgepole was set in place, this fortress-like shelter was officially completed. Its sturdiness is such that it could easily withstand a bear dancing on top. The finishing touches on the roof are quite simple, requiring only a layer of moss and a waterproof cover, with a gap left for the chimney. It seems Roland truly intends to settle here for the long haul. Although Roland appears invincible on camera, he's been going through a tough time lately. Though Roland has gathered food for his sturdy shelter, he's fixated on finding a big game animal. In this 300-acre forest, he can't spot large animals, which makes him frustrated. For the last 2 weeks, lacking protein, he's frequently turned to fireweed roots to curb his hunger. Fireweed roots are starchy herbal roots that can help treat inflammation, relieve pain, and reduce fever. Besides, fireweed roots can help with inflammations. It's smart to gather them early and stash them near food supplies. To tackle upcoming food shortages and swiftly resolve this impasse, he moved the gill net to deeper waters after 10 days without fish. Hoping for better luck, after resetting the gill net, Roland checked the snare trap he'd set earlier, and, after waiting a long time, it finally caught some prey. Today, no longer a barren situation. Faced with this scarce source of protein, Roland eagerly demonstrated what it means to eat raw and wild. This rough way of eating is not advisable to mimic, as eating wild animals directly. Avoid mimicking this behavior, as eating wild animals can easily lead to viral infections. Roland continues this practice because he's been doing it since adulthood, and his body has built up some immunity. For the intestines that other participants dislike, Roland plans to clean and cook the scarce food he currently has. However, as he removes the squirrel's outer skin, he sees its back has become pale. The abdomen skin stays blue, signaling the onset of harsh winter weather. Roland has very little time left to refine his shelter and gather more food. Just as we admired Roland's subtle yet impressive stonework, a surprise expert joined the episode. Other participants are thriving with both food and shelter. Currently, Joe's shelter is the only one that hasn't been started yet. Aware that winter is nearing, he picked berries this morning to curb his hunger. He started building a lasting shelter to avoid becoming a midnight snack for wild animals. Joe aimed to construct a log cabin for safety over 100 days. Before arriving, he knew shelter would be a key concern. He intentionally traded his less effective bow and arrow for a wood chisel, starting by connecting 2 thick logs with interlocking grooves. This created an A-shaped framework, making it sturdy and stable even without nails. Next, use dovetail joints to set up a crossbeam between the 2 frameworks. This dovetail technique dates back to the Neolithic era, around 7,000 years ago. The first physical example of a dovetail joint was discovered at Neolithic sites in Yuyao and Hemudu, China. In the competition, Xiao's carpentry skills reached an exceptional level. Employing mortise and tenon methods, he crafted 4 walls around the frame, a task to be repeated in the coming days. He was on track to complete a wilderness mansion with bedroom and living room. though a week behind others in construction. He believes in the value of steady, careful work, confident that his shelter will endure any challenges. Yet Joe, running on low fuel and high effort, soon finds himself worn out by the enormity of the task. I had to pause the project for now. To finish building this wilderness log cabin successfully, you need to have enough food, as protein is the real currency in wilderness survival. Without a bow and arrow, Joe can only rely on passive income from fishing and trapping. After inspecting more than a dozen traps, he felt like his entire world had crumbled. As Joe reached for berries, he spotted a squirrel tucked in a rock crevice nearby. The squirrel was adorable, but could Joe really eat it? He didn't have time to dwell on it. He quickly grabbed a stone to block the exit, then used a sharpened stick with barbs to poke inside and kill it. Although the hole wasn't very deep, it happened to have a 90-degree turn. This let the squirrel effortlessly dodge Joe's efforts, and right when he was about to craft a new curved spear, he failed to block the entrance, letting the squirrel slip away quickly. Just like that, a delicious protein-rich meal slipped away right under his nose. It's likely that hunger has dulled his brain's reactions. Surviving on just berries and mushrooms without enough meat, how long will it take to finish his grand wilderness shelter? He's already a week behind the others, so he needs to catch up quickly. At this point, his only hope is a big catch. Having survived the conflicts back home, Amos currently has the richest food reserves. On day 6, Amos landed a hefty pike over 10 pounds. In the following days, he almost always had a catch, sometimes even landing 2 fish at once. In total, he has caught 11 big ones, and today, once again, his nets were full. Amos felt immense gratitude towards Great Slave Lake, relishing the rich, oily fish head soup. Looking back at Roland, who was still gnawing on roots, the contrast was stark. For Amos, the show had become a dream come true for any fisherman. At this rate, he might end up with dozens of smoked fish before the lake freezes over. In the evening, Amos sat by the warm campfire, enjoying what felt like the most delicious fish feast on earth. Days like these got him thinking about ways to spend the possible $1 million prize. But just then, he heard sparse footsteps outside his shelter. Noise wasn't a rabbit, more like a wolverine, and the surveillance camera outside caught a glimpse of glowing eyes in the dark. To protect his precious fish stored outside, Amos swiftly snatched his headlamp and bowed to face the intruder. He anticipated a thrilling face-off similar to Jordan's Wolverine battle in Season 6. But after searching around, he found no trace of the creature. Seeing the fish hanging on the tree intact, Amos returned to rest assured. Still, he couldn't shake thoughts of Wolverine fat. Despite his wilderness experience, he had never tasted Wolverine meat. While Kylin had been living comfortably in the Arctic Circle by trapping rabbits, the rabbit meat's low-fat content caused her weight to drop instead of rise. So, Kylin wanted to make a change. She attempted fishing to gather food and fat for the days ahead, but spent the whole morning casting her line without catching anything. The fishing hook was scentless, while the cormorants diving in the lake seemed to taunt the Air Force. After a morning of disappointment, Kylin decided to head back to camp. Kylin intended to take her overnight gear to a spot with more resources and deeper waters to catch some fish. Although spending the night without shelter was risky, with $1 million at stake, she needed to adapt. Risk and reward are intertwined, so she trekked 1.6 kilometers with her gear. Kylin arrived at a prime fishing spot with deep waters, and she believed the water here was much deeper than at the camp, just a cast away from filling her backpack with fish. Despite Kylin's flawless casting arc slicing through the air repeatedly in hopes of a bite, yet not one fish in the Polish lake was ready to take the bait. Just as she was ready to call it a night, suddenly,
I think I got one. I lost it.
though the outcome was underwhelming, it confirmed there were indeed more fish in the deep waters. Persistence confirms outcomes. That night, she fell asleep under a starry sky. The next morning, just past 7, Kylin was back at fishing, all for a tasty fish head soup to start the day right. Unfortunately, it seemed fate loved to tease this hard-working girl. After 2.5 hours of fishing, her arm was sore, yet still no fish took the bait. Kylin grew frustrated. Despite her efforts, the fish she wanted stayed out of reach. She started doubting her fishing skills, and just as Kylin was ready to head back to camp, a shocking scene unfolded before her eyes. A moose weighing several hundred pounds. They were just under 30 meters apart, a prime chance for Kylin. This was an ideal chance. As soon as the moose noticed, it swiftly dove into the water, attempting to flee. Kylin hurriedly mimicked the call of a female moose in an attempt to lure it back. During the autumn mating season, the moose turned its head, drawn by the sound, and Kylin quickly stood up. She was poised to grab her bow and arrow for the hunt, but instantly regretted it. Heading out to fish, he forgot the crucial item, his bow and arrow. Watching an old lady crawl into bed cracked me up. With a golden chance, how could you forget your bow and arrow? It's such a basic mistake. Isn't the goal to secure food, not to relax? Facing 2 setbacks in a single day left Kylin bewildered. She missed catching fish. She missed a prime opportunity to hunt a valuable moose, which was leisurely moving in the water, and would have been an easy shot if she'd had her bow and arrow with her. Had she brought her bow, she would have nailed the shot. She'll surely remember it next time. Don't underestimate these 2 big fish. They're Mark's ticket to winning $1 million. While other contestants are scratching their heads over food, Mark's net snagged 26 big fish, a surprise since he expected food scarcity to be the Arctic's main challenge. But now the real challenge is handling all this fish meat, leaving the smokehouse too full to fit anymore. After eating 8 large fish, there are still 18 smoked and soon-to-be smoked fish left. Such a lavish fish feast is hard not to envy. Given the bountiful harvest, it seems necessary to set up a larger outdoor smoking rack to prepare for the dozens of fish to come. This rack isn't just for storing smoked fish. Considering his own safety and the allure of the food, he also needs an outdoor campfire to ward off animals that like to steal food at night. Mark starts by using 3 sticks. Construct a sturdy tripod with a platform in the middle to place the fish meat at the bottom. The space is used to light a smoking fire, and an alarm system is set up around the rack. If animals attempt a midnight raid, Mark can retreat to the shelter. And once the main framework is built, cover the outside with pine branches to enhance the fish's flavor. Moreover, the smoked fish has a unique, fresh, woody aroma. The taste becomes much fresher and less greasy, completely different from what is smoked indoors. With the food storage sorted, it was time to tackle personal grooming. In the last couple of weeks alone, my stray hairs had noticeably grown. So Mark took on the role of a barber and gave himself a haircut. After his haircut, Mark felt rejuvenated. Yet, he skipped the plentiful fish at home today, insisting on making some reindeer platforms. Usually, he just uses this stuff as toilet paper. He doesn't want to switch to a vegetarian diet, but fish and meat consumption is too much, causing the stomach to be full of fat. Wow, comparing oneself to others can really be frustrating. Hobbling around, after eating tasteless moss, Mark needs plant vitamins to balance his diet, so he's planning to brew tea from blueberry roots. Blueberry roots balance the digestive system with excess fiber. Using them together can quickly restore bodily functions. After looking for the blueberry roots, I found no traces of the black bear's battle. I found lots of untouched seeds and checked how fresh they were. They must have been left this morning, and they were very close to my camp. Right now, they're gearing up for hibernation, making their meat and fat the richest. It's like a pillow landing in your lap when you're tired. Mark noticed black bear tracks across the lake, weary of fish. Perfect moment to switch palate, and perhaps craft some bear gloves as a bonus. Of course, Mark was determined to prevent that. He planned to ambush the bear, armed with his bow and arrow, and hiding in the berry patch that the black bear loved. Although you can't have both fish and bear's paw, maybe Mark, a former Marine, can. It could really happen after all. The lure of $1 million is quite strong. Since getting that plump little porcupine, Kelly has been busy relocating her shelter these past few days. Considering her last shelter left her exposed to the northwest wind, this time she chose a sheltered spot and reinforced it with branches. It seems she suffered quite a bit before, but it's worth it to be out of the wind. The porcupine she caught 7 days ago is now just a pot of bland broth, once again facing a food crisis. Kelly had to refocus on obtaining food. The first thing to do was to check the traps she set a few days ago, but although the results didn't yield the expected prey, when she saw the second one, the blush on the young girl's face said it all. Thought she caught something big, but it was a snowshoe hare. For Kelly, the value of the snare trap, not only obtaining food, but also freeing up time and energy, enabling her to tackle other survival chores. It adds an element of surprise to the routine solitary life. After bringing it back to camp, Kelly gave it some emergency care. The rabbit was in such bad shape that Kelly had to give it separate artificial respiration for its lungs. After everyone had eaten and drank enough, it was time to display some skills. Alongside storing food, it's also crucial to store water. When choosing gear, Kelly chose an iron pot and can for storage, using these utensils. While they can boil water, they're not ideal for storing it for drinking. To enjoy a drink, she must boil the water and let it cool. Therefore, she plans to use this clay to make some pottery to enhance water storage capacity. Kelly first rolled the fully mixed clay into long strips. She then coiled the clay strips to form layers, shaping the pottery's base outline. Next, she pinched the clay strips upwards along the base edge. She molded it into a round pot shape and set it by the fire to dry. To be fair, without professional pottery making tools, Kelly's craftsmanship is rather remarkable, considering pottery dates back 20,000 years in China. The Shanrendong site in Jiangxi has some of the world's earliest known pottery. Clay pottery is an important invention to adapt to the environment and enhance survival skills. After a busy day, Kelly successfully made a clay pot and bowl. Despite not being fired at high temperatures for long, they work perfectly as simple water storage containers. On day 18, Joel, a hunter, caught 2 rabbits using skills gained from the Maasai people. His unique hunting experience is something he wants to share through this program.
Let's go see if we can show you a couple tricks of the trade. Rabbit hunting 101. Do not stalk rabbits. That they are the bottom of the food chain and they see you moving like a predator, chances are they will run. Walk around like you look like a big grass eater that has absolutely no interest in hunting absolutely anything. This will give the rabbit a false sense of security. And then with very slow movements, turn around and make your shot.
By the lakeside, he skinned the rabbits and noticed their fur had become strikingly white. This is because winter is approaching, and the rabbit changes its fur to white. It can better evade predators in the snowy landscape to survive the winter. But unfortunately, it couldn't evade Joel's sharp eye, and back at camp, he prepared stew with rabbit kidney and thigh. Foreigners avoid organ meats, but this guy not only enjoyed it, he also used chopsticks better than I did. I even wondered if he was a fake foreigner. Despite its unappealing look, it's genuine, unadulterated gourmet food. After eating, Joel's complexion looked a bit rosier. With the Arctic winter fast approaching, Joel plans to install a small door on his shelter to fend off the bone-chilling winds. The scent of rabbit blood in the shelter drew flies that buzzed around him. But just as he was focused on his work, a fly suddenly flew into his ear. The host is all too familiar with the discomfort of a fly entering a tight space. It buzzes inside, seeking a way out, causing discomfort in the ear. Joel feared the fly couldn't escape, getting hurt, forcing him to leave the competition. He first tried to remove it with his fingers, but the fly had flown too deep inside, making it unreachable. After failing, he attempted to extract it with tweezers. Luckily, the show gave each contestant an emergency medical kit, but it didn't work. After an hour, Joel found a solution. He used a syringe to pour water into his ear. He shook his head, gave it a vigorous shake, and his ear felt clear. Yet the culprit was missing from the ground. But that didn't matter now. After this annoying ordeal, Joel will probably wear that hat wherever he goes to protect his ears. Guard your ears. After 2 days of anticipation, Jiz is eager to check his catch. Hopeful, he goes to the lake to check his catch, but finds his fishing gear and gill net empty. Having gone 2 days without protein, he was now experiencing slight dizziness. Weak and powerless, Jiz hesitantly eyes the plant on the rock. The 12 geese that can't get away. George Washington's army ate them to survive the harsh winter. They survived the harsh winter by ambushing and eating this creature, which, although edible, I truly wouldn't recommend it unless absolutely necessary. Once cooked, it looks quite unappealing, so it's better to avoid looking while you eat. The ideal way is to gulp it down without chewing. Once you're certain it's fine, he encouraged the viewers to try it themselves, advising them to consume a bit more. After all, energy consumption in the wild is quite high. After a simple meal, Jiz felt his strength returning. He decided to quickly check the traps he had set up. During this period, he had been setting up snare traps every day. However, they have yet to yield any results for him. But even so, he hasn't given up. Survival is more important than anything else. Fortunately, this time, fate finally favored him. Although the squirrel wasn't very large, but its meat is rich in protein, though unfortunately, it has very little fat. I can only say it's much better than eating that bland plant. Just then, snowflakes started falling, hinting at something. The challenges ahead would be tougher. And back at camp, Jiz sits by the campfire amidst the falling snow, waiting for the protein from the squirrel soup to rejuvenate every cell in his body. As he eats, he muses, if only squirrels had 6 legs. He plans to eat the meat today and drink the leftover broth tomorrow. Although life is tough, there's still hope for a $1 million prize. Just as he believed things might improve, a sudden turn of events occurs. On the 22nd night in the Arctic, Jiz suffers stomach cramps and endures a painful night. There's no sign of improvement. He tries to drink some hot soup to ease the symptoms, but things get worse. Just after sipping some of yesterday's squirrel broth, Jiz loses control of his body and becomes a water boy, vomiting uncontrollably on the ground. It's likely he contracted a disease carried by the squirrel, and after emptying his stomach, he finds himself teetering on the brink of hell. Ultimately, Giaz calls for rescue due to his illness. As Arctic temperatures plummet, the strength gap among contestants grows. Out of the 10 challengers, only 7 remain. Who will be the next to withdraw? Meanwhile, Roland, the most dramatically resilient contestant, Roland endured 20 days by subsisting on roots. Now, his fishing net rewards him with 2 fish, providing true salvation for his energy-depleted body. But the 8-pound trout provides just up to 5,000 calories, far from meeting the demands of an ultimate wilderness machine. Roland's basic metabolism and labor in the Arctic require about 3,000 calories a day, so these 2 fish will only sustain him for about 3 days. He still had to figure out the food issue, but as he got to the shore, he abruptly halted. He accidentally looks out and spots something watching him. To get a better look, Roland carefully refocused the camera and was surprised to see it was a local resident, a large black bear. Roland had never seen such. Both held each other's gaze, standing cautiously still. Perhaps the black bear was curious, thinking the creature might be tasty. From an ethological perspective, a bear typically assesses the danger of unfamiliar creatures by observing them first. Its gaze is evaluating Roland's size and movements, while the bear is assessing the risk. Roland, meanwhile, was dreaming of a barbecue feast, plus the bonus of using its fur for warmth. Considering his current position was downwind of the black bear, it meant the bear could clearly detect his scent. Any aggressive action at this moment is likely to trigger the bear's emergency escape response, so it might flee. Considering the environment and animal behavior, Roland opts to loop through the woods, aiming to intercept and ambush the black bear. For Roland, this task was tougher than any he tackled before. Adult black bears weigh 100 to 200 kilograms with a bite force of 360 kilograms. It can sprint up to 56 kilometers per hour, challenging both strength and skill. It was the ultimate test of wilderness survival skills. Despite rapid breathing, though fear gripped him, he looked around. He couldn't find the big black bear. What mattered more was, from Roland's position, he can smell fish and smoke drifting from his camp. A black bear has over 1 billion olfactory cells, about 2,100 times the 5 million in humans. This allows them to easily detect food within a 5-kilometer radius, with scents carried by air currents. This was key factor drawing black bear nearer. With resource-scarce winter, frequent wildlife visits unavoidable. This increases the danger of the 100-day survival challenge. Kelly, a seasoned wilderness survivor, stands on a mountain, feeling the icy wind from afar. His gaze falls on the water's surface, rippling under the fierce wind. Feeling the Arctic winter's imminent arrival, and having undergone nature's spiritual cleansing, he chose to improve his shelter. If not, so not only sealed one end of the shelter tightly, but also achieved a certain level of heating and insulation. Because stone has low thermal conductivity, it transfers heat slowly, and its high heat capacity allows it to absorb and store heat. Even after the flames go out, it can slowly release heat, effectively maintaining a stable indoor temperature, making it perfect for winter survival shelters in the wild. After transporting and stacking 2 loads of stones, a fireplace over 1 meter high began to take shape. However, Kelly quickly realized that the gaps between the stones could lead to heat loss, making sure the fire stays safe and contained. The careful construction of the fireplace is vital, not just for warmth. He prioritized safety by sealing the walls with bark-stripped sticks. Since this area is right above the fireplace, the bark cellulose can quickly dry and catch fire in high heat. Moss fills the gaps between sticks, offering insulation and resisting flames. Under Kelly's meticulous care and skillful hands, the shelter with a large fireplace is finally completed. It's crafted excellently. While it lacks Roland's insulated food storage, but even a small one won't let the winter invade. Resolve to win was unwavering. Today, he finally caught up. If he keeps securing food supplies, barring any mishaps, he still has a strong chance to compete for the championship. Here's Joe's cabin on day 23 of the Wilderness Challenge. Shelter appearance on day 12. Similar, not identical. The outer walls are slightly taller. I assume someone capable of constructing a stunning cabin. Gaudi is an interesting guy, but who knew he'd be so lazy? Gaudi hasn't been in the spotlight, but his cabin building skills are impressive. Can he relish life in his wilderness mansion before exiting the competition? Besides the initial days when he ate small animals, he's mostly been seen eating wild vegetables until he's full. Today, he intended to muster all his strength to build the shelter, but after just a few swings of the axe, I was already out of breath. The imbalance between energy intake and physical exertion has caused Joe's weight to drop by more than 10% during this period, and it's still decreasing. To keep his wilderness shelter from being abandoned, he needs to fully commit to finding food. Fortunately, a patch of white caught his eye from afar. But upon closer inspection, a perfectly plump snow hare had been torn apart by another animal. Luckily, the main parts were intact, and after cleaning it up, it could still fill his stomach. He realized he needed to check the traps more often from now on. Learning from this lesson, Joe immediately decided to inspect the traps to prevent caught prey from being snatched by other animals. To his dismay, he found the hare entirely eaten by another animal, likely a cunning fox. The culprit was likely a fox, as foxes are known for their cunning in the forest. Their diet consists of 95% meat. If it were any other prey, this hare would have been gone for sure. Overall, today marked a highlight of his time in the Arctic Circle. Finding 2 incomplete snow hares reduced reliance on berries for hunger, and Wilderness Villa progress could speed up. With enough food, Joe chose not to rush the Wilderness Villa project. Instead, he wisely took a break in the drafty shelter, making the most of his energy. He believed gathering plenty of food was crucial to maintain his strength and build up fat reserves. Ultimately, the shelter would get finished, but food would be hard to find in the frozen wilderness. Fishing was his survival strategy. Joe aimed to replace the hare with trout. Fortunately, the ecosystem of Great Slave Lake was rich and intact, or perhaps Joe's luck had truly arrived.
Yes!
His excitement is beyond words, and shouting out loud is the best way to express his hard work. Using half a day's effort, he secured a week's worth of food. The fish in his hand is likely the largest caught by any contestant so far. Adult lake trout can weigh up to 93 pounds, but this aquatic giant is eye-catching enough. His survival plan is effective. Meanwhile, Kelly, contestant, even in the wilderness, she regularly cleans her intimate clothing. However, her greasy long hair bothers her in this solitary environment where beauty is of no use, and my deed, short-haired women appear more capable. Since the start of the competition, Kelly has been setting snares around her camp, and they have not disappointed, bringing her decent catches. Though not a feast, she hasn't gone hungry for a day. However, armed with a bow, she checks the traps. She couldn't fulfill her wish to eat spicy rabbit head tonight, not even catching anything at the rabbit hole entrance. Just as she feels a bit disappointed, she unexpectedly encounters a rabbit out for food.
Shot my first bunny.
Kelly says nothing, drawing her bow fully. Wow, her arrow shot to the throat is flawless. It's safe to say the contestants carrying bows make it hard for animals to escape. With food worth $1 million, Kelly has long shed her initial tears for rabbits, as those truly aiming to win. Her face shows no smile. After bringing the rabbit back to camp, Kelly decided to reward herself generously tonight. When he goes to retrieve the fish, he discovered the gill net drifting solo in the water, as the sea had unexpectedly snapped the stick securing it. Fortunately, the net wasn't far from the shore, so Amos quickly used another stick to retrieve it. This net is Amos's most precious treasure in the Arctic Circle. Without it, surviving the 100-day challenge would be difficult. Right now, snowflakes are drifting down, but it's vital to gather firewood ahead of time. Since the snow's duration is unpredictable, and the Arctic temperature hovers around 1 degree, and it occasionally starts snowing. After nightfall, the persistent snowflakes descend once more, undeniably complicating survival. But there's no choice but to face it all. So increasing the firewood reserve is the best protection. However, just at this moment, the axe went missing, and without it, he might as well return to the Stone Age. Fortunately, the snow didn't last long. The next day, he found it again at the place where he chopped wood, and the joy of recovering it made him overjoyed. Amos will surely cherish it more in the future. On the other side, Bridge didn't face snow issues, but he was almost blown silly by the wind. Bridge's shelter project remains incomplete. He vowed to finish it today. But honestly, even if you work tirelessly for 24 hours today, the possibility of completing the Wilderness Villa is slim. Bridge has lost 20 pounds, and if he had been a bit more diligent, things wouldn't be like this now. But after chopping just 2 logs, he felt exhausted. Just then, the sky turned against him, bringing rain that forced him to stop working and retreat for rest. Heavy rain punishes everyone who hasn't built a proper shelter, and to make matters worse, the waterproof cloth somehow got a small hole. It's over. Heavy rain outside, light rain inside, and poor Bridge can only keep wiping away the leaking water, while the sky seems unwilling to stop. Joe, bottled up frustration, finally let it out. His heart kept him awake all night.
Rain! Why rain? Everything's just wet. Son of a bitch. I'm supposed to be raining in.
As the sun illuminated the earth again, Joe looked at his shelter's sorry state, and he sighed deeply, feeling helpless. Despite this, his mental resilience remained intact. Joe appears to understand the need for change. He hangs up his damp clothes and bedding. He decided to move into the open-air mansion, despite being in a situation where drinking the northwest wind could fill him up. At least he won't have to deal with heavy rain, giving him some time to search for food. Otherwise, he might not live to see the mansion finished. From a God's eye view today, perhaps his performance isn't perfect, but given Joel's circumstances at the time, he's made the best choices given the situation. The camera pans to Joel, who carves the events of the past month onto a stick with a knife. He understood that always missing his family could weaken his resolve to win the $1 million prize. So even on days when he doesn't gather food, he must keep himself busy. To be a chair, even in the wilderness. Being alone doesn't mean you can't enjoy happiness. Begin by crafting a sturdy tripod with a few sticks, then tie a row of smooth sticks to it, and you've got yourself a low-budget recliner. As soon as he sat down, it instantly felt like outdoor camping. Once he completed the camping chair, he crafted some dice. To be honest, Joel, let's bring in lights, music, girls, beer, and barbecue. With all that, forget about just 100 days. You could easily stay another 100. Looks like you're pretty at ease with surviving in the wild, pal. As Joel realizes that once everything turns white, his feet will endure the cold for long stretches. Frostbite and chilblains are common, so foot care is especially important. So, when he gets back to the shelter, comfy, soft slippers are a must. He lines the slippers with rabbit fur and uses tree bark for the framework. He put them on, warmed by the campfire. They were comfortable. He put in a lot of effort chopping wood, appearing to craft a water ladle. Later, the tree's height was wrong, showing Joel as a musician in everyday life. He even made himself a mandolin, a plucked string instrument that originated in Italy. It's about the size of a violin, with a pear-shaped body and a clean front end. The body is arched, with a rounded back, resembling an almond, which is how at this moment, the awakening power within Roland transforms his life's greatest strength into a divine sword, pouring it towards his target. Then, the only sound is the arrow slicing through the island's silence. That's the end of this episode's story. Thanks for sticking with us. You're welcome to like and subscribe to my channel. Next time, we'll see how the survival expert tackles 100 days in the Arctic Circle.